Today we're going to cancel the women's NCAA March Madness tournament. Now, I know what you're thinking. There's a women's March Madness tournament? Yes, I had the exact same thought when I was made aware of the sexism controversy surrounding the women's tournament and the accommodations that the female athletes are receiving in comparison to the men. So here's the USA Today. Here's USA Today with news on the controversy. It says the NCAA acknowledges the discrepancy in amenities between the men's and women's basketball tournament on Thursday after images posted to social media drew significant backlash. Pictures surfaced Thursday showing the stark differences in gifts that were presented to women's basketball players compared to men's. Stanford sports performance coach Allie Kirshner posted photos of the facilities inside the Indianapolis bubble compared to the San Antonio bubble. WNBA star Sabrina Ionescu, big fan of hers, last year's National Player of the Year in NCAA women's basketball, fumed over a poor display in the weight room, tweeting, quote, "Women's NCAA bubble weight room versus men's weight room. Thought this was a joke. WTF. What is this? To all the women playing in the March Madness tournament, keep grinding." The picture showed the plentiful options in an Indianapolis weight room compared to a small rack of dumbbells in San Antonio. Aja Wilson, who plays for the Las Vegas Aces in the WNBA, another player that I am not only aware of but a huge fan of, tweeted, "The weight room situation is beyond disrespectful." Then Sedona Price, who plays for Oregon, posted a TikTok calling out the disparity between amenities, writing in her caption, "It's 2021 and we are still fighting for bits and pieces of equality." Okay, now the NCAA, there we go, has apologized and pledged to fix the problem. But to give you the visual, if you're watching on the Daily Wire YouTube right now, here is Sedona Price with her TikTok video complaining about this discrepancy in the way that the men and women are being treated. Let's watch it.
I got something to show y'all. So for the NCAA March Madness, the biggest tournament in college basketball for women, this is our weight room. Let me show y'all the men's weight room. Now, when pictures of our weight room got released versus the men's, the NCAA came out with a statement saying that it wasn't money, it was space that was a problem. Let me show y'all something else. Here's our practice court, right? And then here's that weight room. And then here's all this extra space. If you aren't upset about this problem, then you're a part of it.
Well, then I guess I'm a part of it. Because I'm not that upset, I have to say. It's not on my top 20 list of concerns in my life right now, is that the women NCAA players don't have enough weights in the weight room. See, it's one thing if you simply asked for better equipment. You know, that's fair. I won't begrudge you that. I have to admit, the first time I saw that video, and I'll admit this myself, the first time I saw that video and I saw the women's weight room set, I did burst out laughing hysterically. I can't help it. Don't blame me. The problem is that it's just extremely funny to me. But I can understand why the ladies might want a bit more to work with than a rack of 5-pound dumbbells. At least get some 10-pounders on there, for God's sake, and a couple of yoga mats. The problem, though, is when you lecture me that I need to be upset about women basketball players not having all the exercise equipment they want, and you tell me that I'm a part of some greater societal problem, and you demand equality. See, that's where the problem comes in. And I'll tell you why that's a problem. There is no equality between men's and women's sports, especially men's and women's basketball. The equality doesn't exist. Any effort to make them equal or to treat them equally is absurd. Here's a simple fact. The men's NCAA tournament generates billions and billions of dollars. The women's tournament, according to the Wall Street Journal, doesn't turn a profit. It loses money. So you have on one hand a sport that makes billions, on the other a sport that makes nothing, actually earns negative. It has to be propped up, kept afloat, put on artificial life support. Men's basketball keeps women's basketball in existence. The very existence of women's basketball is a favor that men's basketball is doing for it because it can't survive on its own. That's just a fact. To give you one isolated example, Ohio State. The men's program earns over 10 times as much revenue from ticket sales as the women. And that's only ticket sales. 10 times as much. Now, why is that? Why does men's basketball, both on the collegiate and professional level, completely trounce women's basketball in revenue? Well, because nobody cares about women's basketball. Nobody watches it. Nobody goes to the games. Almost nobody, anyway. And what this means is that The vast majority of the people pretending to be upset about the unequal treatment of female athletes also themselves do not watch the women's games or have any real interest in them. So they're standing off to the side basically saying, yeah, I don't give a damn about this. I think it's boring as hell. But sure, yeah, it's an outrage if this thing I don't care about and that nobody else seems to care about isn't treated the same as the thing I do care about that everybody else cares about. It's absurd. See, I would have a lot more respect for Sedona here if she had said, listen, I know we aren't as important as the men's side, and I know that the men are keeping us in business, and I really appreciate that, by the way. Thanks, guys, for allowing us to exist as a team, because we wouldn't if not for you. But we'd still really appreciate some better accommodations. I'd respect that. I'd be on her side. But instead, we get lectures and speeches about equality. And when you come at me like that, it's a non-starter. Any discussion of equality is a non-starter. Men's and women's sports are not equal, will never be equal, and should not be treated as equal. And the thing is, you might be mad, you might want to be mad at me for saying that, but you can't really be mad because you're not watching it either. So you're part of the problem. With all that said, I support women's sports. I want women's sports to continue to exist. And the greatest existential threat to the continued existence of women's sports is not a lack of workout equipment. It is rather, of course, the intrusion of males into those leagues. That's why I'm fighting to keep males out. Anyone who is not fighting for that or is instead actively fighting to get men into these sports can't pretend to be upset about unequal accommodations. When you get your way, women's sports won't exist at all. That's the real threat. And it stems from the same confusion that leads people to be upset about girl basketball players not being treated the same as guy basketball players. The confusion is in the belief that men and women are the same, interchangeable, not different in any significant or fundamental way. But they are different. They are not the same. They are not equal, as equal means same. And that's why the women's basketball tournament isn't owed the same treatment or the same accommodations. But it's also why women athletes are owed the basic protection of keeping men out of their sports. And that's how this all breaks down. And those who don't understand that are canceled. I guess I also said at the top that the whole women's tournament is canceled. That may be a bit harsh on second thought. Also kind of redundant. Nobody's watching it anyway. And far be it from me to cancel something that I just learned existed 5 seconds ago. So instead, we'll keep the cancellation more broad than that. That's another favor that I will do for the ladies. You're welcome. Hey, listen, hit the subscribe button. Do it right now. I demand it. And I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.